shoot a freaking YouTube video before I go home today, huh? That would be really nice because it's been a long day and shooting a video before I get home would be... Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. What's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. I'm a composer and today I'm going to be asking questions... Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Jesse Haugen. I'm a composer and today I'm going to be answering your questions. So let's jump on in. First question comes from Josh DeMoss on my Discord, and if you're not a part of my Discord, you should join. There's a link below. It is an awesome community of composers, people who have been doing composing for a while, people who are just getting started. We're very supportive. We do get-togethers where we hang out, show each other's music, we talk about music. It's a really sweet community, so join that if you haven't. Links down below. We're always welcoming new members, and I'd love to see you there. Like I was saying, this question is from Josh DeMoss. How do you transition from writing/producing music as a side thing to your full-time job? Is it more often a steady buildup of commissions until at some point you say, I'm going to try full-time? What challenges can one expect early on as a full-time composer? This is sort of the million-dollar question. And before I answer it, I just want to say this. I am giving you advice based off of my personal experience. I do not expect this to be a one-to-one fit for you and exactly where you're at. This, for some of you, honestly, might be totally worthless advice. For others, you might find it super useful, but in either camp, take this all with a grain of salt, use what you can, disregard what you can't, and I just don't want to be responsible for any of your big life decisions is what I'm trying to say. I can't bear that responsibility. Like I was saying, this is the million-dollar question. How do you transition to full-time? And if you're asking this question, I assume that means you are making some money composing. And actually, I would say that transitioning from making some money writing music on the side to making some money writing music as your full-time job is almost harder than making no money to making some money. And the reason that it's harder is because no matter when or how you make that transition, it will always include a sacrifice. And the reason for that is if you're doing music on the side, that means you probably have some other primary source of income. Even if it's not a lot of money, you're still making some supplemental or maybe full-time job amount of income that is paying for your life or paying for part of your life. And then you're also making money doing music. And the reason that this is hard to transition into the full-time music is that no matter how much money you're making doing music, when you make that transition, you will leave behind this other source of income. For me, that was teaching. I ran a music department at a junior high, and it was difficult for me to let that go because I had enough work to transition to full-time composing. But even though I had that, I was still saying no to the paycheck that the teaching was offering, and it feels like a hit no matter what. Even if you have a ton of composing work just waiting to be done, you're still turning down another income source. And I know it feels like I'm kind of harking on this a little bit, but I want to drive that home because if you're expecting that there will be a time when you can shift into full-time music and it won't feel like a hit, that time just will not come. Even if it's fine and you can take that hit and be fine, it's still a hit. Transitioning to full-time music is a hit because it necessitates leaving something else behind. And so basically the answer to your question is, how do you do that, or when do you do that? Do that when that hit won't kill you, if that makes sense. Because it is a sacrifice, and as long as it's a sacrifice that you're willing and able to make, then that's the time to do it. Now, that comes with a lot of inherent risks, though, because once you go to full-time music, it probably means that you're going from like W-2 income to purely freelance income, and that obviously is like massively more difficult. It can be really, really great. You can set your own hours. You can work when you want to. You can work as much as you want to, as hard as you want to, as often as you want to. But it also means that your babysitter might be waiting for you to get an invoice to pay them for watching your daughter because invoices never get paid in the time that you wish that. Okay, I'm getting too personal about this, but yeah, it's a real life situation, and that is the sort of thing that you face. And so to answer the second part of your question about what are some challenges early on in full-time composing, I think the inconsistent pay is a really big thing. I think the other thing is typically when you're doing music on the side, you're a little bit more kind of freewheeling with the prices that you charge people because you're not relying on it to live. And then transitioning to full-time work, it's hard to convince people, especially if it's people you've been working with for a long time, that like, hey, I need to be making like a livable amount of money on this. And you're going to lose all your clients if you just turn around and go like, all right, now I charge triple or whatever. Like, obviously you can't just start charging people a bunch more money, but you do have to try to find the balance of like how much work is conceivable in the amount of hours there are in a day, and how much money do I need to be charging to make that work. And then, you'll still always do free work if it's passion projects or whatever. But I mean, this is the $1 million question, and I feel like I've sort of just rambled on with the answer, but hopefully there's some tidbits of useful information in there. If that leads to more questions, just shoot me a DM or leave it in the comments below, and I will go into that a little bit more. And our next question actually has to do with this as well. So the next question comes from Christopher V. Wagner on Instagram, and the question is, what do you recommend people consider before relocating to Los Angeles? And I just want to say again, take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because I don't want to be responsible for you moving or not moving to LA. But you asked the question, so my best answer is, the thing that is interesting about this question to me is that in asking it, there is this assumption that I have seen a lot, that you have to live in LA to be a film composer. And that was pretty much undeniably true for a very, very, very long time in the history of this career. It is still in part true, but it is not entirely true at this point. I actually recently moved away from LA, only about like 3-4 hours north, so I still can go down and stuff, which I definitely do have to do. But for the most part, like 95% of my work is remote. And that came from meeting people in LA that I now work with remote, but I've also gotten a lot of work, international work, domestic work, just from an online presence. And I think that over time we have shifted, and especially from pandemic on, have shifted even greater into a model where working remote is more and more and more common. Now, does that mean that LA is totally pointless? No, it is still and probably will always be a hub for people doing this kind of work. And is that valuable? Absolutely. Is it necessary though? I don't know. I don't know that I can say that it is. I also don't know confidently that I can say that it isn't, because I am coming from a place of privilege here. I did live in LA, so like I know I benefited from that, but like if I never did, would I move there now? I don't know. I don't know if I could answer that question. And the reason that it's hard, I mean, if LA was like anywhere else to live, I would say, yeah, probably worth it. I mean, there's a great hub of people, but LA is freaking expensive. It's hard to live in LA, and like LA is not the greatest place to live. It's amazing because the people are amazing, and it's amazing to live in a temperate climate where there are beautiful beaches. But like, LA is LA, and if you've never been to LA, I mean, I would recommend before moving there, just visit there. Find someone you can stay with for a while and be like, do I even like being here? And then ask them how much they pay for rent and being like, do I want to be tied to that? Because the other thing to consider about relocating to Los Angeles is you are immediately burdening yourself with a massive cost of living, which affects what you are able to do work-wise. Because if moving to LA to become a full-time film composer means that you now have to be making at minimum X amount of money per month, that's, let's say, a lot of money per month, you're probably going to get some job, and then you're probably just going to spend all your time working at that job, not actually doing the thing you want to do. Versus if you don't come to LA and you're able to live somewhere cheaper, or you're able to live at home or whatever, now you have a lot more time to get really good at composing music. And it's hard. I would say if you have absolutely no connections, no prospects right now, moving to LA might not give that to you, but it will give you a ton of burden. If you're doing well and you want to grow, moving to LA might make a little bit more sense. Maybe you have a little bit more financial freedom to do that, or you have a lot of connections and you're just trying to expand that network or get more industry jobs. That might make a little bit more sense to me. So I don't know. Again, take that with a grain of salt, but that's just my 2 thoughts on the matter. It was more than 2 thoughts on the matter, but those are my thoughts on the matter. And yeah, let's move on from giving people life advice, I hope. Next question comes from Daniel Van Horn on Instagram as well. And the question is, what is your licensing process on what you do with your killer track, where you go, and who you pitch to? This is a great question. Licensed music is obviously a huge part of it. For those who don't know, licensed music is different from like boutique film scoring, for example, which I do a lot of, which is people hiring you to write custom music for a specific thing. Licensed music is sort of the opposite of that. It's writing music ahead of time that you then shop around for people to license and use within their projects. So music that already exists that you've written that people are taking and putting in. And that, for some people, is a great way to make a living. I have a lot of friends who make a great living that way. I do it some, but not a ton. So I'm speaking a little bit out of secondhand here, knowledge. But the thing that I do know about it is not anything other than a quantity game. Licensing music is all about numbers. And what I mean by that, it is almost wrong to think about it as, okay, I have this great track, or this killer track, as you said. Now what do I do with it? Because that's an assumption that that track is going to do anything. And I'm not saying this to be pessimistic. I'm just saying this based on what I know and my experience in licensing music and then the friends that I have who are in it. The thought should be, okay, I have a catalog. I have the libraries I've submitted to that have asked me for music haven't accepted less than 20 tracks, or at minimum like an album. I have submitted singular tracks to stuff, but it never goes anywhere. It almost sometimes doesn't even get released. Like I've signed away tracks to libraries that never even put them out because it was just a single track. They were going to do a compilation, but then some other guy submitted an entire album's worth of tracks that fit into the genre they were doing the compilation album for, and so then their album just got released. And so the first thing I would say is, if you have a killer track, sit on it, make 10 to 15 other ones that live in the same world as it, and then make your question, what do I do with this killer album? And the question to that is, package it as incredibly well as you can. They might redo all of this. Give it a sick album cover, give it names, categorize it, upload it to like ReelCrafter or something, some easy way to showcase it, and then literally just send emails to the companies that you want to work for, whether that's music library houses like Gothic Storm or whoever, or it's waiting for those calls for applications from like MusicBed or Artlist or whatever it is. Just look for quantity, because that is gonna ultimately not just get people to notice it and maybe bite, but once you get music into libraries, it's also a quantity game, because you could have the best track in the world that gets licensed every once in a while. You're not going to make a ton of money from that. But if you have like 500 tracks and they're all getting licensed every once in a while, or a couple of them are getting licensed, like that's how you start making money. So I would really say with licensed music, it's a quantity game. Go for quantity and just send it to whoever you're interested in working with. Be wary of like upcoming libraries that don't have a lot of placements, or shady. There's a lot of shady stuff out there. Just if you're confused, ask people who are in the library, or look online. There's a lot of resources, and just see what kind of placements they're getting, what the composers who have stuff in their catalog, what their experience is like with them, and then go off of that. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for the question. Next question comes from Drumlords on Discord. How have you improved this year so far? It can be composition, production, or even just general workflow. And then what kinds of things did you do to improve in that way? I have kind of a boring, maybe not a boring answer to this question, but I was thinking about this question and there's like a definitive answer. And the answer is I got good at game audio implementation with music because I am working on a video game. And it's the biggest video game project I've ever been a part of. And it's the first video game project I've been a part of with like a slightly more complex music system. My previous video game experience was just submitting tracks to stuff and then it getting worked on. But we're doing some creative things with the music in this game. And so I learned like Wise and Fmod, which are audio implementation softwares that allow you to build like Logic, chains and systems that you can use to control the music and control the loops and the layers. And it's just incredibly fascinating and complex. And the way that I got good at it was watching way too many videos online, just like raw experimentation, collaborating with friends and other people on the project or just close collaborators of mine who are also interested in this sort of thing, and just sort of like encouraging each other and sharing our knowledge with each other. And it has honestly been so fun because it's not often that like I open up a piece of computer software and I'm just completely clueless, but that was literally my experience. And so like overcoming that was a oddly fulfilling thing for me, and now I love it. I'm so pumped about it. So definitely video game music, specifically inherent like logic systems and implementation. A similar question from a different person, also on Discord, Goodwin Malta, and the question is, which areas you feel that there's need of improvement, and if there's any, what steps do you take to get better? Also, what's your workflow when starting a project? This is gonna sound kind of lame, but honestly, in terms of places I feel like I could improve, it really is everything. I don't ever want to think that I have reached some place in my skill or craft or whatever. I really am hungry to always improve, but some specific areas, I think I could improve in orchestration. I think that I've gotten pretty good at it, but I've been relying on similar colors and layers and strategies, and I think just expanding and thinking outside the box with that a little bit. I'd love to improve on that. I think that I could improve writing music away from picture. I've sort of really cornered myself into being such a slave to the picture that it's hard for me to write music away from a movie scene. And I think that there's a lot of good reasons to be good at that, licensing music like I was talking about before, but also like this video game music I'm starting to do more of, a lot of that happens away from the project. And so I think, yeah, that would be maybe the biggest thing I'd like to improve on, is writing music away from picture. And then as far as the second part of that question, which is what is my workflow when starting a project? Typically, it just starts with a meeting with the director, producer, or whoever is involved, and talking like general scope, like what do you want this vibe to be? What do you want the music to accomplish in this project? And then actually doing a spotting session where we go through and we talk about where music needs to be, where it doesn't need to be, when it's there, what it should be doing. Maybe they have some references or some temp. We talk about what's working in that, what's not working in that. And then from there, I go straight to picture. I know this is talking about what I like to improve on, but I think it is actually a really big asset, specifically with film scoring, is I don't write away from the picture at that point. I am just a slave to what it is on my screen and serving the story and the scene in every single way. Just making sure that everything that I come up with, even if I'm coming up with themes, I'm typically doing that against picture, because I just find that it tends to create music that just fits like a glove with the story and the tone and what's going on, if I'm not sort of trying to retrofit something I came up with, but it's actually something that I'm sort of pulling out of the project. And yeah, so then I just start. I don't like to send things before I have things pretty fleshed out. And so if it's a short film, like I'll sometimes just score the entire film, send it as a draft one, and then we'll go from there. If it's like a feature, maybe I'll do a reel, or I'll do the most important scene and then go from there. But I'm fleshing out demos really far. I'm getting things almost to like a final state before I'm showing, just so that I know that I did the due diligence with the idea and I'm presenting it in such a way that the director, producer, creator, whoever is getting the best idea of what I'm going for, and then we can make informed decisions and collaborate from there. So yeah, that's my process. The next question is sort of two questions from my Discord that I conflated into one, and it's from Dashman and PSI Finesse. And the question is, how do you balance changing gears between films, games, etc.? I do. I'm not fortunate enough at this point to do like one big project for a couple months, another big project for a couple months. I'm always working on a million projects all at the same time. And these two people know that, which is why they asked that question. And honestly, like switching between them isn't really something I even think about. I'm sort of just so used to it after doing it for years. And honestly, at this point, I think it helps me stay productive throughout the day. It's easy to start bashing your head against a wall when you're composing. So if you switch genre, or if you switch medium, or you go enter a completely new musical world, it's like it refreshes and resets me. So typically the way that I do it is I just work on a project till I feel like I'm running into a wall, and then I jump into another one, work on it till I'm running into a wall, maybe I jump back or I jump into another one. And that process sort of keeps me from ever like entering a writer's block or like burnout, because I just move on to something different. If I am not getting through a scene today, I'll just go work on a different project that's going to take me to a different place, and maybe actually in some ways just unblock me. And sometimes I'll jump out of a project into another one and then immediately get an idea for the other one. So it helps, it's sort of like a brain hack. Also, frequent breaks throughout, just like walking outside to get coffee, go on a walk, play a game with friends, eat lunch, that sort of thing helps a lot in being able to switch gears and sort of stay fresh throughout the day. Next question comes from Fidgmo on Discord. And the question is, how do you get a start in composing without spending a lot of money? As a hobby, of course. Do you have any tips for free plugins? Yeah, I mean, like, this isn't really the answer you're looking for, but you can start composing like without anything. You can just pick up an instrument or sing or get a piece of staff paper and start coming up with music. Obviously, I think you're talking a little bit more specifically about like media composition and creating music in a computer. And so to answer that question, you obviously need a computer. You don't need the best computer in the world, but the absolute cheapest way I could think to do it would be to get a PC secondhand, to get Reaper, which is free, and then if you pay for the license, it's like $60 or something, which is a fully fledged digital audio workstation, or DAW, which professionals I know use every day of their lives. It's not a compromise. It's just amazing and free. And then get some free sample libraries. A lot of really good ones are like Spitfire, has some great one with their lab series. Piano Book is amazing. It's where people post a bunch of free samples online that they custom made. And there's a sampler that someone made called Decent Sampler that a lot of those samples live on if you don't have the full version of Contact, which is another sampler. And Decent Sampler is free. So get Decent Sampler, go on Piano Book, filter the samples by Decent Sampler, and then just download a billion libraries and have more fun than you've ever had in your entire life. Orchestral Tools has a bunch of free ones. I think they call it Sign Factory. Those are all really excellent. Speaking of licensing, there's a track I signed with a library recently that used horns from the free Orchestral Tools horns library. Like it was like big band style horns, and it just sounded so good. Like I think they thought I recorded them live. So yeah, free samples can be absolutely amazing. And then just any sample library you're interested in, just go to their website, and a lot of them are doing the free sample thing now. So I know, I think Project Stam has some, Sample Modeling might have some, I think 8DO might have some. There's a lot that have them. So yeah, just dig around, you'll find them. And then if you can, maybe get a cheap audio interface and like an SM57, which is a super cheap microphone, or just get a USB mic even, and like start recording stuff and making your own sounds. You don't have to spend a ton of money to do that, but just the biggest thing is like, don't let the money or the budget keep you from doing it. Just find a way. Even if you don't have good stuff, it doesn't matter. You can be creative. And so be creative, whatever that looks like. Honestly, an iPhone, get GarageBand for your phone, and it has a built-in microphone. You can make sick music on an iPhone. I've done it. It's really fun. I do it on airplanes sometimes. So yeah, that's what I would do. All right, and the last question comes from John Scores on Instagram. How old were you when you knew that you wanted to be a film composer? I always knew that I wanted to do music in some capacity, but specifically film composition probably started around high school. I was writing music for like our concert band and our jazz band and my own personal post-rock instrumental band, and a lot of people were saying that it sounded like movie music, and I didn't really until that point even know that that was like a thing that people could write music for specifically. And I was never a songwriter, I was never a lyricist, and so I just sort of was really drawn to the idea of creating instrumental music that was a part of something more than just the music. It was a part of some media experience, like a film or a video game or a TV show or whatever. And that's sort of what made me fall in love with the idea, and I launched into college and sort of went from there. So yeah, that's when I knew I wanted to be a film composer. And yeah, now I'm here, and you guys are asking me questions about, what it's like to be a composer, and I just think that that's so incredibly cool, and it's really fun for me to offer you things that I have learned. I hope that it was informative. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe. I've got 10 more videos coming, and I'd love to see you in the next one. So thank you so much. Bye.